How do they cable under the...
No, but the cable is damn big. The cable is like this big, I think.
The sheer scale of this.
How do they...
There's a dent on top.
Are electricity bills in Singapore too expensive? This is your daily catch-up.
Are they?
Y'all don't even know is how privileged y'all are.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's episode is sponsored by the Energy Market Authority. For those of you who don't already know, the EMA's main goals are basically to promote effective competition in the energy market and ensure a reliable and secure energy supply and develop a dynamic energy sector in Singapore.
Nice.
So, when EMA reached out to us, basically I'm like, I don't know much about this, man. So they kindly provided us an expert who can help us to answer all our questions for today, such as my mother's main one, which is why it's so expensive, why everything's so expensive.
It's true, it's true.
So welcome Mr. Law, who is also known as Guillaume.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Law.
I think Guillaume is better.
Guillaume. Okay.
It's always weird to call older person by name.
Yeah.
Am I that old?
Still children.
Hey, not that old lah. Like, okay, already, right? Quite close to John's age.
He's very young, that's why. Okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Law is basically the director of EMA's Policy and Planning Department. Yeah, so can you share a bit about like what you do?
Okay. First thing first, I think just like to share that it's not strange to not know anything about EMA. Before I went to interview, I knew nothing about EMA, so that's perfectly
Look at you now, director. Well done.
Yeah, that's right.
So I head up two teams. One focuses on looking at the longer-term strategies of the energy market and how we can align the different work streams within EMA towards these objectives. The other team is looking at policy.
Okay, sorry, please carry on.
The other team is looking at policy, which looks at what are some new initiatives that we want to do. One of the areas that we focus on is climate change. Yeah. So that's a little bit about me.
I don't understand anything about it.
So what is it you do again?
So yeah. Maybe on a day-to-day basis, after you eat breakfast, then you do that.
Break it down.
Usually after breakfast, I sit down and think about the future.
Don't go down to his level.
Yeah. So we drive a few key initiatives within the policy team. So, for example, in the past, we actually developed the first electricity futures market, the first in the whole of Asia.
Yep.
And so that was something that we launched within the team. We also look at climate change as mentioned earlier. So we actually focus on what are some of the key measures that we need to do in the energy sector to help us achieve net zero power
Emissions,
sector. Yeah, so that's right.
Oh, okay, then I got a question.
Okay.
So I heard, right, you know there's this like Earth hour or something, like everybody's supposed to turn off all the electricity, right? I heard, I don't know if it's true, that is actually, it doesn't help. It's
more costly.
It's more costly in terms of energy. For you to off everything and then restart everything.
But it was never about saving electricity, right?
The awareness.
It was an awareness thing.
Yeah, then, but isn't it strange that you do something that costs more electricity in order to generate awareness?
But you see now you're more aware.
Like, there you go.
True that. Now you know.
Okay lah, then never mind.
So
Why would it cost more electricity?
I don't know.
What is the logic? Because you off your switch, the generator doesn't turn off, what?
No, like there are certain appliances or whatever, right, that from my understanding is that it requires more energy to start up rather than
So
just
if you
to
leave
keep
it
running.
on, it's
Means they are doing it
Yeah.
wrong. You're not supposed to turn off your fridge.
no, but
Just the aircon.
a
Just the light.
common argument I have with my mom, right, is like, for example, like I shut down my computer, right, then I never off the switch. Then she said that it's still it's wasting electricity, but to me it's like it's off, so why is
It
that?
does, right?
How's the energy?
That is true. It is true. So
My mom was right.
devices, even if you turn off your power of the device itself, but you leave the switch on, it will continue to draw a little bit of power for standby.
The red light on my TV, that's where the power is
it's
going.
still going to. So,
Right.
So
which is why they actually advise for you to switch off the power switch itself.
Ah.
The mains.
Oh,
Okay.
that's interesting.
But then I
listen
can't
to
just
the-
slide
yeah.
over and turn on the fan.
Of course, this is quite difficult in this new age when we have a lot of smart devices.
Yeah, I was going to say that also, yeah.
Because I asked
Mobile
Google to turn on
vacuum cleaners
everything.
on 24/7, etc. Yeah.
That's why.
Wait, then should we go smart or not?
No, so there's actually an alternative where you plug a device, right, that goes in between your plug and the outlet. So that thing is smart. It can turn off and turn off for you.
No, but that thing is on. Same. But plus connection to the internet.
More problems.
I also have that one.
Sian.
Yeah, so
But
now
it
that
draws less
we're
power than the main device itself. So
Oh.
That's true.
Right.
See? So
So now that we're in like the third quarter of 2022, right, I was reminded of this article that I saw quite a few months back, but it basically talks about SP Group's electricity tariffs to go up by 8.1% in the third quarter, which is now. Yeah, so on 30th June, they actually announced this, and they said that the increase is mainly due to higher energy costs driven by rising global gas and oil prices, exacerbated by the conflict in Ukraine. Yeah, so excluding GST, the tariffs were increased from 27.94 cents to 30.14 cents per kilowatt hour. So, firstly, what are electricity
I cannot think in
tariffs?
kilowatts.
Yes.
As in, why do they call it tariffs? Like, why is it not just like electricity price?
Okay. So actually,
Is tariff a tax?
Yeah, I always thought it
no,
was tax.
tariff is price that is regulated by the EMA. It's set by the SP services, but EMA actually regulates to make sure that it's priced accurately for consumers.
Fairly lah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's different from import
Yes.
tariffs, which is where the tax comes from.
yeah. So basically, our tariffs are something that reflects sort of the longer term price that we expect are required to provide energy for consumers. It actually covers two main parts, the non-fuel as well as the fuel portion. And what you see driving the change in prices today is mainly on the fuel side. So that's the energy component. And you will see it's actually not only a Singapore thing, it's actually a global thing. Since the end of last year, we noticed that prices have been going up, energy prices across the globe, because of supply constraints as well as increasing in demand after the pandemic.
Right.
So this is actually driving up prices. And this is not helped, of course, by the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has
But
been...
we don't get resource from there, right? We get our natural gas, for example, from Indonesia, right? I think.
Yes. So our energy prices, we don't get from some of these sources. However, energy is a global market. So actually, if you know oil, for example, is widely traded around the world. You can buy at different prices in the press in the UK for Brent and so on and so forth. So these are global markets, and because our gas contracts in Singapore are actually tied to such prices, you will actually see our price movements go up and down, even though we don't actually procure fuel from these countries.
Plus, like some more, like because sources from these countries are like lower, then people are also getting it from our sources also. So that's probably like increasing the price of everything, lah.
Yes.
So actually, because I don't know, right? Because I genuinely don't know how much my house pays for electricity. So for those of you who are paying, is it actually like a significant difference now?
Actually, my electricity bill has been going down. But I think it's because I've been conscious of it. And so like sometimes I'll be like, okay, let's turn on fan. So like actually this month...
But it's still a stupid amount of money lah.
So I pay about maybe 215 bucks.
What?
200. Okay, that was this specific because I just checked.
You stay big house.
Sorry?
Not
You stay big house.
A private house.
No, I've like maybe a 3-bedroom
Is your aircon like
on all the time.
right?
Oh.
And also I have a very bad habit. I leave my heater on, like the
Heater?
Right.
I need a heater and then I leave that switch on like 24/7.
Wait, so you on aircon then you on heater?
No,
Water
like
heater.
water heater.
Oh.
So I always have a very bad habit of not turning it off because it's outside my room.
Does it make a lot of difference? Like what household appliances cost the most electricity?
Aircon.
Yeah.
In Singapore, usually air conditioning takes the biggest bulk, and then the fridge is one. In terms of individual devices, fridge takes a lot.
Fridge constantly on, constantly
Yeah.
cold, mah.
Yeah, exactly what I thought it would be efficient.
Also like things like
Depends on which fridge you buy lah.
like dishwasher machine or like dryers also, I think
Yes.
like apparently use a lot of energy. So what is your aircon culture like at home? I genuinely want to know.
Actually, usually if the weather is not too hot, I don't use aircon. I use fan. Yeah. So only recently the weather's a bit hotter, so I've been using aircon at night.
So sometimes you just sleep through the night without aircon also.
Yes. Yeah, with the fan. Yeah.
Actually, can one. I feel like there's this temperature hump that if you get over, right? Actually, the night very cold.
20
Like, don't
degrees.
need aircon, right? Yeah.
Like the 2 a.m. 2 a.m.
Like,
No,
don't
the
need
problem is that I need to have the blanket cover me. If not, I cannot sleep.
No, you got to use the 1 foot
So you
technique.
need. Then I heard that it's self-regulate.
Ah.
It doesn't. It does. So okay. So the theory is that right, if you put half your body under blanket and the other half exposed, your body will self-regulate the coolness and the warmth.
Yeah.
But my body's too efficient.
No, but then ghosts will touch
my
your
left
leg.
side perspire, huh?
Ghosts will touch your leg.
Yeah, they will pull your leg, right?
Yeah,
correct.
that's why I
You
cannot
know, I
do
must
this.
tuck it under my feet. You know, they will pull your leg.
Yeah. But it's only the leg.
I need your
Yeah.
leg.
Knees man already.
Well, if not for aircon, you die.
Very tough. What
never
is
think
your
that that's an
electricity bill is the question.
Actually, I pay less than 100 a month.
No way.
I also.
So kind of like transitioning
Hey.
transition back to our main topic of the day, right? There's actually an article that I saw that someone was asking, does Singapore have one of the highest electricity prices in the world? So they were actually comparing to quite a few like stats from neighboring countries, and we are like quite up there. Yeah.
I would think so. Are we?
This is a myth.
It's a myth.
Busted.
Yeah. So I think
he has to bust it first.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you lions,
Yeah. So I think electricity prices in Singapore are not cheap. I think that's for sure. I think everybody can accept that. But we are not among the most expensive in the world as well. So I think EMA does a regular benchmarking to see how do we stand against similar cities.
Oh, that's what you do.
Somebody else in the company does it. But
okay.
Not his
You
department. Not his
oversee.
yeah, but so we are kind of like the middle of the pack against comparative countries. So a lot of times, some of the European countries actually pay a lot more, and so a lot of the Asian cities we find will pay a bit less. That's for quite a wide range of reasons. So for example, in Europe, there's a lot of taxes. There's a lot of they actually impose additional tariffs to pay for sort of climate change efforts, etc. So that actually raises the price. For some of the Asian cities, for example, then they actually subsidize the electricity tariffs. That actually lowers the prices. In some countries, they actually have their own resources as well, and then they sell it cheaply to their own electricity providers, and that helps to actually depress the price as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Singapore does not generate any of its own electricity.
We generate all of our electricity.
Yeah, we generate all of our electricity, but the fuel that they run on is natural gas, of which we actually import from the rest of the world. And actually 95% of electricity comes from natural gas.
In Singapore.
In Singapore,
Because it's cleaner.
Right.
I remember when I was young, my mind was like blown when I realized electricity was just like all this fuel that we are trying to get from bloody dinosaur, from gas, all that, right? We're just trying to boil water so that the steam can turn the turbine. Like that's all we are doing. Like all these fuels that we are looking at, right? All we are trying to do is boil water. Isn't that ridiculous?
Wait, sorry. So how does natural gas generate electricity?
It's flammable, so we can boil water.
So that
So
it can
we
turn
burn the
turbine.
gas, and then the gas makes steam. Then the steam turn the turbine.
Turn the fan.
And there's the generator.
Then you turn the AC generator. Isn't that ridiculous? That's f***ing ridiculous.
Wait, correct or not?
Is he oversimplifying?
Buzz. All the buzz is about liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel to support us. Thank you very much. We support you, and you support us.
Have the energy to press it lah.
Back to the episode.
He's 50%, right?
Wow, there's a lot wrong there.
I believe that 100%. Yeah.
Pass.
What is the truth?
Yeah. So we have what we call combined cycle gas turbines. So there's the gas part and there's the
Losing you.
steam part. Sorry, this is too
Okay.
technical. Okay.
Okay.
So
no,
but
try.
the gas part basically is the same as your car engine. But your car doesn't have steam inside the engine, right?
Yeah.
What it does is when you burn the fuel, it heats up the air, and the air runs the turbine. So this is the gas turbine. Then the remnant heat from the gas turbine goes towards boiling water. And then
Right.
the water runs the steam. This is the steam. That's the boiling water.
He missed the first.
So actually
entire
got two
first half.
levels.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot more
No.
efficient.
Yes.
So
I'm
that
not
the
half right. I only told half the story. It's
The
different.
back half.
yeah. So actually it's not wasteful because there's the excess heat, right, that is being used to generate again.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So what? I don't know how big this turbine is.
It's huge.
But how many are there? Like, is it one powers like 1/4 of Singapore or some shit? Or
Each, right? Because we only got 2 power stations, right?
We have about 6 or 7 big power stations in the whole of Singapore.
No, in 2 places, lah, right? No, eh? We got 6 places, eh?
He trying to
We
be
have
correct, right?
Yeah. So it's most of our generation is in the west, in the Jurong Island, Tuas area, and then there's one additional power station in the north, around the Senoko area. So in total, actually, most of the electricity in Singapore is generated by about 20 or so turbines. So you can imagine the entire Singapore runs on 20 of these turbines.
yeah.
Have you seen a turbine in real life?
I've seen a box, and the turbine is inside.
Oh.
Because these plants are highly tuned, highly efficient, so they actually box it up such that it is not affected by the external conditions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
But not all 20 are
wind
running
dust.
lah. It's like some are backup lah, correct?
Yes. So not all of them are running at one time.
Guys, correct and John today.
Calm down.
No, I remember seeing another documentary where the turbine was super huge, right? And then that guy was trying to talk about mechanical precision, about how efficient these things are, and he just used his hand and he push it and he
That's
can
so
make
light.
the thing turn with his hand.
So
yeah, then you imagine with like boiling steam,
Yeah.
that thing is probably spinning like crazy. But okay, I digress. I was very nerdy.
This is what you're interested in. But yeah, so I think like with like Singapore's energy transition and all that, right? I think a very big debate has arisen in specifically regarding to price, which we have talked about, right? What is this like? There's this term that they're throwing around, which is the energy trilemma. What is it, and like how are we going about it in Singapore?
Okay. So I'm sure you've heard of the term dilemma. Dilemma usually is you need to choose between two things, right?
Yeah.
So yes. So trilemma is amazing. It's choosing between three things. Yeah. So So
confused already. Wait, can you slow down?
So what are the 3 things?
Good. But you're following. Nice.
the 3 things basically is energy security, energy affordability, as well as energy sustainability. So environmental sustainability.
Security.
Yeah.
So if I can elaborate a bit on the trilemma, right, based on my notes if I have here. So security is basically, can we access enough energy whenever we need it, when and where we need it. So like changes in supply will not affect us.
So the issue with policy making in the energy side is basically because of this trilemma, you can sometimes have one, good you have 2, but you cannot have all 3.
Yeah.
That's why it's a trilemma.
Right.
The example that I usually give is if you know this meme about what's the best phases of your life. So when you're young, you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of time, but you have no money, right? And then when you're middle age, you have money, you have energy now, but you have no time. And then when you're old, you have a lot of money, you have a lot of time, but no more energy to spend it, right? So this is what I call a trilemma.
So how old is Singapore now?
Where we at?
IQ quiz.
Yeah. So a lot of times when making decisions in terms of what we want to do in Singapore, we have to choose between all these things. We have to weigh the trade-offs.
And it's constantly changing.
Yes. So for example, I think the easiest example is you see solar. Right? Everybody says, why does Singapore just run on full solar, etc. So solar has the prices are coming down. So actually it's getting more and more affordable. And it's secure in the sense that actually it's produced locally in Singapore. So we don't have to rely on imports, etc. And it's environmentally sustainable. Okay, but there are some issues with solar as well. For example, the sun is not
consistent,
shining at all times, right?
Cloudy day.
Yes, exactly. So during those times, then no more energy. So if imagine you're 100% solar, then go on rain cloud, that's it.
Wait, the energy
go
cannot
short
store one, eh? I thought it's like they can keep then used while there is no sun.
Electricity can be stored, but it's very inefficient. It's very expensive. Yeah. So usually the system is quite delicate as an electric system. You actually have to balance the supply and demand at all times. That's the ideal situation. And when it goes off balance, it can actually harm a lot of the machines. So your down the road, actually, we have a micron. It's a semiconductor, right? And semiconductor is actually a very precise kind of manufacturing process. And if the electricity voltage actually goes off, you actually destroy the entire batch and they have to restart from scratch again.
Right.
So some of these industries actually rely on the high level of reliability and quality of energy that Singapore provides for them.
Right. And I think, like you mentioned just now, right, like the expensiveness of it. If alternative energy is so expensive, right, why are we still moving towards that? Because then is our triangle completely not bad, always consistently not balanced.
Yeah. The truth is that climate change, I think we all know it's actually something that affects all of us. And it affects Singapore exponentially because we're a small, low-lying island. So you talk about like rising sea levels. You know, all your pretty condos and houses in Sentosa may not be around anymore if our water levels rise. So
equality.
Yeah. So because of that, actually, there's already a global effort for us to address climate change, and Singapore has to play our part as well, right? So we want to actually move towards cleaner energy sources that will help continue to meet, while continue to provide affordable energy for consumers, and also have it at the same level of reliability that everybody in Singapore is quite used to. In other countries, sometimes you don't know when you have energy, but in Singapore, you turn on the switch and you expect electricity to be there all the time. Yeah, so that's the target that we are working towards.
How far away are we from like net zero? If you do know the answer to that, sorry.
We are quite far away.
Okay.
So today, I thought I mentioned earlier that 95% of our electricity comes from natural gas. And natural gas, although it's the cleanest fossil fuel compared to say coal or oil, it's still a fossil fuel, so it still produces emissions. So we need to slowly phase away from natural gas, or be able to somehow capture the carbon that comes from burning this natural gas.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Today we have maybe a couple of % of our total fuel mix comes from solar, which is kind of the only low carbon kind of option that we really have in Singapore. Yep.
Is it very difficult to get there, like to get to zero? Like what are some like intricacies or challenges that we don't really understand or see?
It's difficult, and especially difficult for Singapore. So for many countries, they have a lot of renewable resources. So for example, some countries will have a lot of hydropower. They have like big dams and everything that they can produce electricity. They have a lot of space for solar panels. They have a lot of space and high wind speeds for wind as well. A lot of this is not available in Singapore. We don't have big rivers. We don't have high wind speeds. So solar is probably our only viable renewable energy. But one thing that solar needs is space. right? One solar panel can only produce so much energy. So an estimate by one of the CERIS, which is a research institute in the NUS focusing on solar, estimates that even if you maximize the total potential for solar in Singapore, you can only produce less than 10% of our total energy mix by 2050.
Right.
So that leaves another 90% that we need to solve somehow.
When they
That
talk about
sucks, man. That's so
maximize,
demoralizing. What the heck?
yeah. When they talk about when they maximize the potential, means like on every single building rooftop, on every single available space, is it?
Pretty much.
Can we build an indoor solar farm? So imagine, right, like if I have a room that is like imagine like a cube, right, just one side is like open. So inside is fully plated with solar panels, and then I have a massive mirror that just like reflects the sunlight in. Does that work?
I don't know.
But why?
No, so then, because if I have, even if I plate everywhere with solar panels, not enough, ma. So then to solve it, can I just like produce like indoor like solar
So what you
farms?
do, right, is that the roof has solar pointing up, but then under the roof also has solar, and then the mirrors are bouncing up and down. And so then it's actually just solar everywhere with mirrors.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Okay, idea. Okay.
Someone figure
What
it
is
out.
going on?
As far as I know,
the
solar
earth.
panels don't reflect the light, don't reflect the energy.
They're not supposed to, like.
so
They are, then they're not.
So
So
absorb
we
it.
build a mirror around each of it so that it can reflect and then
The
it can...
sun.
No, but where the mirror is can be the solar panel, then that'll be the most efficient,
No, so
right?
it's not an entire mirror. So like maybe 90% solar, then 10% mirror.
Yeah.
He's drawing the schematics in his head.
Wait, okay. Does the intensity of the sun make a difference on how much power can be created with the solar panels?
It does in terms of
So,
A giant magnifying glass.
Okay, your turn, your turn.
yes, giant magnifying glass.
Then we're all burning, yeah. Wow.
One time go on, not onto you, onto the panel.
Okay,
Back.
so if solar is clearly not enough, right, then what else is like Singapore doing to transition our energy?
So in 2019, we introduced what we call the energy story, and we actually laid out 4 switches that will actually help towards decarbonizing the power
Pun,
sector.
guys.
It's such a Singapore thing, ah.
Wait,
Switches.
Nice.
No, we totally did not follow PUB on this.
Sure.
They only got taps to work with, but okay.
Okay. So the first switch is natural gas, which we talked about earlier. And so what we need to do now is actually to continue to increase the efficiency on that part, help maximize the amount of energy you can extract from this. And we understand that the transition not be something that will be quick and easy. So it will take many, many decades. And actually, we will continue to have to rely on natural gas for the foreseeable future.
Right.
Right. The second switch is solar. I think we talked about it quite a bit. But again, we mentioned that actually that could only probably do about 10% or so. So we need to solve the next bit. The third switch actually is what we call electricity, regional power grids. Right. Actually bringing electricity from not just within Singapore, but actually from around the region. And that is useful because actually, although Singapore itself is quite we have very limited resources in terms of renewable energy. Actually, we exist in a region that has quite ample resources, right?
Yeah.
So Indochina has ample hydropower. Many of our neighboring countries like Indonesia, Malaysia have a lot of solar and hydropower potential as well as wind. Yeah,
So we import energy from
yes,
them. Okay.
that's an option.
Is it true that this energy comes to us by under the sea we have like cables?
Yeah, so likely coming through subsea cables. So
How
actually
do they
long
build
cables.
that?
So they build it first, then they drop it lah.
Yes. Yeah. So there will be.
What do you mean, Denise?
No, how to like where all the water go, you know what I
And
mean?
have you
No, it's just
been
on the
to the sea?
seabed. Yes.
You know how vast is it? And then like how
Yeah.
one-
Yeah, how do they cable under the
No, but the
sea?
cable is damn big. The cable is like this big, I think.
the sheer scale of this.
How this
There's a dent on top.
No, because I was reading also that there were some stories about like maybe Singapore potentially buying like energy.
Yeah.
From Australia, right?
Yeah,
I
from
think we
Australia.
already started, if I'm not wrong.
How does it work? Like
Then
wouldn't the
when you-
energy?
when you click, then the electricity from Indonesia.
Yeah.
It already moved lah.
No, because we always learn about energy loss, right? The longer the wire, the more energy will like
Oh, yeah,
dissipate
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Oh, which is why it's under the sea lah, because it's cold. I'm guessing.
Wait, what has cold
Wait,
got
I
to do?
lost already.
So you know
What
when
does
you have
temperature
long,
have to do
when
with
you have
this?
long wires, then
Yeah.
energy when it's transporting you might lose it in heat along the way.
But you lose it faster in water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No,
you
but it
have to
cannot
deal
be
with
in the sky, what?
There's an expert here. I don't know. Why are you keeping silence, sir?
Is it really just a wind farm and then cable
This
and then
conversation
just
too stupid for him.
Yeah. I mean, it's a solar farm first and foremost.
Okay. So just to clarify, we have started to import electricity, but we're actually importing it from Laos.
okay?
And
Via
it's actually
Thailand.
via Thailand and Malaysia.
Okay.
So actually our our networks are connected via cables already. So we are actually going through Thailand's grid as well as Malaysia's grid to get the electricity over to Singapore.
By grid we mean like the pylons.
Yes.
The what?
The pylons.
What is that?
The tower of wires.
Oh.
You don't see that in Singapore because all our electricity cables are underground.
There's
So you don't
no
really-
pylons in Singapore.
Yeah, it's a tourist attraction for us. We go like, oh my god, look at their cover. Yeah,
Okay, because
Look at
I'm
the one.
Malaysian and I'm like, this is very surprising.
We go there, it's like an Eiffel Tower, then we.
Yeah.
No, but how do they
right,
dig
right.
under the sea? That's the real question.
They are just laying
So
it.
so
They're just laying.
they just lay the cable. So you
No one
imagine-
is burying
There is
it.
no tunnel. It's not like a tunnel, then the cables are running through the tunnel.
No.
So
It's
they lay
just
on the
lying.
seabed.
Oh.
They just drop it.
The cable is already very well
Insulated.
insulated. And then
I thought it's like an underwater
pirates? Are there
passage.
electricity pirates? They go and try to like break into the cables, tap into
Bro, you
it.
get so electrocuted in the entire sea bath.
But these people may be high tech or what? Is that a concern? No, is that a legitimate concern?
there was a Singapore ship, right?
I'm
that
not
went
sure
to
about
hook some cable. They were fishing. Or like their net or their anchor kena then hook then break one. Then one part of the world no internet.
Oh yes.
I'm not sure about electricity pirates, but then there is a real risk that anchors, such as stray anchors from ships, can actually damage the
Right.
interconnection. And as you mentioned, I mean, down under the sea is probably very difficult to reach. So there's a particular risk for electricity imports because if you actually damage the cable, actually could take quite. Compared to Singapore, you can just dig up the road and then quickly fix it. Maybe take a few days to get back the power at most. It actually could potentially take months for you to fix.
Yeah.
Just finding where the problem is will
Yes,
take a while
yeah.
already. Yeah,
Oh
so-
god.
Is one person underwater following you until you reach the
So the
Yeah,
third
the
switch is
scale
the
of it.
regional power grid. What is the fourth switch?
Yeah. So the last switch is what we call low carbon alternatives. It's a broad bundle of different options.
Right.
And basically is we're looking at some of these technologies that are still quite nascent today, but potentially can actually
New.
provide
Hamster wheel.
not so much hamsters. I think that was a bit hard to harness. But one of the things that we're looking at today is hydrogen. Hydrogen is something that is getting global momentum. Many countries like Japan are interested in this, and so that's possibly something that we want to potentially tap on.
Is hydrogen renewable? It's in abundance, but is it?
Hydrogen usually you have to do some chemical processes to extract it. It's around, but actually it's quite difficult to.
Right, we're
produce
extracting
in
it
the
from
pure
water.
form.
Split
So
water.
usually it's yes, and then
H2O.
you depending on how you power the technology that uses it, it could be deemed as renewable lah. So if you produce it from say solar power, etc., to run the process, then it's called green hydrogen, which are the clean ones.
Right.
The
From water
other-
is it's so crazy because you split it, you get hydrogen, right? The waste product, oxygen. It's like, huh?
It's great. Then why are we trying to fight here? Rising sea levels. Take away the sea. Dry that shit up.
We solve climate change.
I think you should write this down.
No, and plus our solar panel farm just now. The indoor.
I'll feedback to some of my technical colleagues and let them explore.
Can
this.
you let us know? You call us anytime.
Don't worry, guys. Climate
3 months
change.
from now, we see a giant magnifying glass floating in the sky.
So like we talked about like, low carbon alternatives, right? But just now you mentioned also when it comes to natural gas, right, we can like find out ways to like reutilize the carbon that is actually coming out of that, right? Like, can you tell me a bit about that?
So globally, there's this technology, a group of technologies called carbon capture, where they then try to extract the carbon after you have either burned the fuel, and then the carbon is supposed to be floating out from the gas pipes.
This is the carbon
chimneys,
emission
etc.
lah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you try to capture the carbon, or sometimes they actually try to extract it from the fuel itself before you burn it. So it becomes
Right.
natural gas without the carbon. So there are different technologies. I'm not an engineer, so I can't really talk about some of these things. But that's something that is being explored around some of these countries, and that can, if proven viable, can actually allow us to continue to use some of the fossil fuels that we are having.
Right.
The problem again is that the efficiencies are not as high,
Right.
and it's very costly today still.
Is this a Singapore-based thing? Like, are we at the forefront of exploring this?
It's not deemed as a more viable option for the power sector today.
Yep.
But for some of our industries, so Jurong Island is actually actively, some of the companies that are actually actively looking at this technology
Right.
to see how they can decarbonize the industrial plants like the petrochems, etc. So there's a possible option for Singapore. There are a few other countries who are quite keen on this, US being one. who are actually actively exploring and putting R&D into some of these technologies.
What are some like other trade-offs that there are like when it comes to transitioning our energy?
So other than we talk about the price and the cost, etc., security, I think we talked about whether we can bring it reliably. Actually, we need to make sure that the supply chain is sufficiently robust. So if you imagine the oil markets today, actually you can buy from many different countries and get it shipped all over the world. And the natural gas market is going something similar as well. But imagine if we have a hydrogen market in the future, can we have enough people buying and selling such that we can get it? You know, like if Malaysia don't want to sell chicken, we can go and buy Indonesia, right? Is this possible for hydrogen? It's not clear.
Right.
Yeah.
But now that we need to be importing energy, right? As in, is the energy we're importing, is it extra or is it that we're not enough?
We
Like, why are we importing?
So we want to gradually replace natural gas, but we're also growing. So actually, electricity demand in Singapore grows as the economy grows and as our population grows. Right? So actually, Singapore continues to require more and more energy. And this is actually heightened by the fact that we talk about electric vehicles, right? So electric vehicles, imagine they move away from oil to electricity. So maybe in Singapore as a whole, we require less energy in all its forms because we don't require less oil, but we actually require even more electricity. So that's actually another thing that is actually creating additional needs on the power system. So we need to actually continue to produce more electricity to meet some of these needs.
But so now if any one of these countries, right, they decide like, we don't want to sell you all the electricity anymore, does that, like, are we at risk?
60 days to figure it out.
That's a lot of time actually.
Yeah, it's not bad.
For our natural gas, back in 2013, we actually built our first LNG terminal. LNG being liquefied natural gas.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between piped natural gas, which we get for our immediate neighbors, and liquefied is that they can come in ships because they are in liquid form, and that actually allows us to import natural gas (LNG) from all around the world. So we actually get from many different countries. So this allows us to actually quickly switch to a different provider if one country chooses not to provide us with energy. Of course, you negotiate price and everything, but actually this gives us an alternative option. Yeah.
Okay.
I never thought we have so many questions about electricity in Singapore.
Yeah, no, I'm damn
Like, what the
interested.
heck?
This is so cool. So like you mentioned
so
that,
many questions.
like eventually, hopefully, 10% can be from solar, right? But then that means 90% is from natural gas, and we're trying to phase that out slowly to be fully sustainable, right? Does that mean that eventually we get to a stage where 90% of our energy is all imported?
I think we had announced back in I think it was 2021 that we would import up to 4 gigawatts of electricity. That number doesn't really mean much. Yeah.
No, like Aga, so like my
5
fridge
Pikachus.
or what is like how many kilowatts?
So it's about 35, which is where we hope to get this 4 gigawatt in by. It should cover around 30% of our energy requirements.
Okay.
So 10%
She
solar.
wants an example in
30%.
Yeah, I want an
4 million
energy.
fridge.
So I cannot tell you it how much.
30% of Singapore's energy consumption measured in fridge. Like, what the heck? That's how many ice cubes.
Okay, but how many aircon? Aircon is the most, right?
Okay. So 30% by 2025 will be imported.
So that leaves still another 50 to 60% that we need to produce from alternative sources.
Cool.
So that's where our low carbon alternatives come in. Yeah.
Wait, so this is your job to get us there to that 30%? Or is it you already know in the bank already, we are going to hit 30% by that?
My work, as what we talked about, actually I try to help project what will be the possible options we have in the future, and then what are some of the things that we need to do to get us there. Of course, within EMA, we have a lot of colleagues working on different aspects in terms of making sure that all these plants are actually built, making sure that are we able to secure some of these electricity imports from other countries, negotiating with different countries, and as well as making sure that everything that is running, what you see is running smoothly, 24/7.
It's like an executive futurist.
Yeah, very important, man.
Wait, so in your projections, right? Like, do you,
Yeah, we need to save him at all costs.
We don't like this attitude.
are we planning to be fully renewable by like say 2050 or what?
So in earlier this year, actually, our future Prime Minister, DPM Lawrence Wong, actually announced during the budget speech that we're working towards the whole of Singapore being net zero by or around mid-century, so plus minus 2050.
Mid-century, yeah.
Yes. So the power sector actually contributes about 40% of our total emissions in Singapore. And so for the whole nation to become net zero, then clearly the power sector has to achieve this as well.
Right.
So actually we're working towards this. So 2050 plus minus is probably the timeline that we're working
How
towards.
old will you be by then?
I will be. I won't tell you that.
Yeah, he nearly fell for it.
126.
Still around. What? I always kind of imagine in my head that like 2050 is just very far away from me. Like I don't think we're gonna hit there because like climate change, our Earth just gonna explode, right? So like,
Okay.
I'm wondering like,
Optimist.
What is it with Gen Z? Really?
Yeah.
Because of the giant magnifying glass.
burn a hole into the core.
So 2050 sounds like a very long time, but in terms of the energy sector, actually, it's not a very long time, because a lot of the plants that we build are around for 25 years or so. So a lot of the plants that actually we build today may be around in 2050, which is why we're actually already actively planning it today, even though it looks like something that is 20 years down the road.
It's crazy.
so to prevent our Earth from exploding by then, right? As like a tiny Singaporean, like is there anything like that I can actually do?
So Singapore, admittedly, actually the households actually don't contribute a big amount of our total
that's good to know.
energy consumption.
Yeah,
Can I pick up maybe 15% or so, but every little bit helps. And so you actually, of course, actually everybody can actually contribute towards conserving energy. So some of the things that I do at home is I set my aircon temperature to 26 or 27 degrees.
What?
Huh?
No way.
I thought you were saying 25. 25 is pretty reasonable.
That's how I pay less than $100 for my electricity bill.
I see.
Yeah.
It makes that much difference.
Above 25 degrees apparently makes quite a bit of difference.
So can I do strategy? I do 20 max fan for the first 10 minutes. Then after that I switch it up to 27 for the remaining.
Your aircon is just heating your.
It does help. So it does, because you cool down your room sufficiently.
Yeah.
And then it will slowly warm up only. So if you keep the aircon on, but then you maybe raise it to a high temperature, it will still keep the room probably cool enough for you to fall asleep. And then once you're asleep, actually you don't really care what's the
Yeah, actually all the aircon got timer feature one.
Yeah.
We never use any.
if we don't transition our energy, right? Like, what is our runway to like natural gas running out? Like, you know,
Yeah, it's a good question.
The truth is we don't know how the market is going to develop over the years. So in terms of actual natural gas, most research says that actually there's ample resources in the world for many more decades to come. The question is whether do we want to take it out from the ground, or do we want to leave it there, right? Because of the climate change emissions.
Because of the carbon.
Yeah.
Right.
And what we will see is that as more countries move away from natural gas, it's a demand and supply issue, right? So less people are buying, it becomes more costly to fund projects to extract natural gas from the ground. It becomes more expensive.
Yeah.
So there'll be a time when actually it just makes more economic sense for us to shift away.
Right.
But we're not quite there yet. Yeah.
I have a very stupid question, okay?
Okay.
How do you extract the natural gas? It's like someone out there dig the floor, dig until
Then they
is
take
it
a plastic
literally
bag and like
gas coming out? Like you dig at some point, like
Wait, it's not crude oil and all that, man. It's not like
no, it's natural occurring
it's a
one.
gas.
It's in
It can be in liquefied form.
It can be in liquid form, but usually it's gas. Usually, okay, again, I'm not an engineer, so I will talk what I know from what I hear from my friends. But basically, in oil and gas wells, you can actually have both of them in the same cavern.
Yeah.
And then when you dig it and you reach it, then you can extract and you actually literally just extract the oil or the gas from.
But you must be able to. You must be able to. You know, like when you stop it at the time, right?
Yeah.
Plug it,
Sorry?
Yeah.
if not, it's wasting.
Yeah,
If not,
yeah,
it's
to like-
wasting.
Yeah, like if you pop the balloon, it just.
Yeah.
So you must.
You don't know what I mean? Is that not a valid question?
No, okay, I got a stupider one. So, right, natural gas is actually made out predominantly of methane, right? Which is also
know that.
cow's fart, right? So
Okay.
that we have many cows. Are we
Yes.
using them effectively?
Probably difficult to
Extract
pluck
cow fart.
something from the.
So I put his mouth there.
No, all the cows just need to like wear a bag lah. You know what I mean? Like they.
Like a fart condom.
It's a bit
Yeah.
like a matrix. The cows, you extract everything from the cows.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got many good ideas
What else do
today.
we want from
Yeah.
cows? Yeah, really.
Everything really.
We drink the milk they produce for their children. We make clothes and accessories from the skin of their backs.
Yeah.
We eat their meat.
Do you know I just
Now
learned
we want
something?
their fart also.
So you know tennis rackets, right? They have many types: polyester, and then they have synthetic, and then they have this thing called natural gut, which Roger Federer used. Do you know why it's called natural gut?
Because it's from
It's
cow.
still alive.
It's made from the intestines of a cow.
Oh, it's guts.
The fibers of a intestine of a cow. That's how they make the tennis
No
strings
way.
for Roger Federer. mad. It's from last time when they used to use wooden rackets. Wow, this has taken a massive detour. Back to energy.
No, so I think the key thing we wanted people to get from this was that this is something that I think we need to do as the importance of it, and that to understand that actually there are some trade-offs that probably need to happen, and that we need to be a bit clear-minded in some of the things that we need to do. So some of the trade-offs talk about, security,
the trilemma.
Yeah, the most obvious one I think you hinted was affordability, right? So the electric price will be potentially we have to become more expensive. We were switching to more expensive sources. We need to kind of weigh all these different trade-offs and try to balance and see what's the best outcome for Singapore.
Trade-offs.
Your job is so interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Does your parents understand what you do?
We don't talk
your
about
mother
it.
proud of you. I feel like like she don't know you're helping the country move forward. You know what I'm saying?
Such
like your mom needs to know that. I feel.
She show you her electricity bill, then you.
Yeah, she just complain. 为什么这样贵?
Then he explained the trilemma.
So a dilemma is. So thank you, Mr. Law, for joining us, and once again, thank you to EMA for sponsoring today's episode. We hope you've got a clearer idea of what turned out to be actually a very interesting topic for us.
Very interesting.
Electricity. Yes. So like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.
This episode was electric.
Giant magnifying glass.
Then we're all burning, yeah.
One time go on, not onto you, onto the panel.
That's exactly what's being done, in Solar Farm.
Party time.
Oh,
Your idea is so lit.
really, man? I don't see no giant magnifying glasses floating in the sky.